The radical. Fundamental principles of freedom, rational self-interest, and individual rights. This is the Yaron Brook Show.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Yaron Brook Show on this Tuesday, September 16th. The week. Tell I'm still traveling. We'll have this for another, 12 days or so, 10 days or so, something like that. Anyway, let's jump right into the news. I will remind you to submit questions. Super Chat is open. Super Chat is available. I do have a bunch of questions from, no sound. Who has no sound? 1, 2, 3. Do you guys have sound? 1, 2, 3. Audio is pretty soft. Sound is low. All right, let's check this out. Sound is, oh, okay. Is that better? 1, 2, 3. All right, what's going on? One, two, three. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Sound better? All right. Yes, good. High. Sound is low. Try screaming into the mic. A bit better. Let's raise the mic closer. Is that better? 1, 2, 3. All right. I think with the mic closer in, and I've raised some of the stuff here. All right, it's good now. All right. Anyway, I wanted to remind you to ask questions and use the Super Chat to do it. I'll add that we also have a bunch of questions from yesterday that I will get to answering today. But we need a fund today, so don't forget to support the show today. Stephen Harper, Catherine, thank you for your stickers in support. All right, let's jump in to the news. Let's start. I mean, the thing hitting the internet right now is Pam Bondi, Trump's Attorney General, or I guess the United States government's Attorney General. Pam Bondi about free speech that is shocking to a lot of people. I mean, this woman, I told you when she was nominated, when she was approved, this woman is not qualified to be Attorney General of the United States. She is a partisan hack. She is a blind follower of Trump and nothing more than that. She knows nothing about the law, about her job. She is ignorant and not very smart. So here's what Pam Bondi said in an interview on some Katie and something. Quote, there's free speech, and then there's hate speech. And there is no place, especially now, especially after what happened to Charlie, in our society, for hate speech, right? She continues, we will absolutely target you, go after you, if you are targeting anyone with hate speech. Now, will somebody tell me the difference between this and the woke left? Will somebody tell me anything different between this and what the left argues all the time about hate speech? Will somebody tell me what's the difference between this and what's going on in Europe, which conservatives supposedly argue against? Hate speech is not protected by the First Amendment? Since when? It's exactly hate speech that the First Amendment is there to protect. You don't need to protect niceties. You don't need to protect people when everybody agrees. You don't need to protect people when people are polite. When you need to protect people is when they say things that offend. When they say things that are hateful to some. What does even hate speech mean? Does anybody know how to define hate speech? No, and I've been critical, and many conservatives have been critical of the left's position on hate speech for years and years and years. And I've done whole talks on the fact that hate speech is an invalid concept. And of course, hate speech, speech is violence, all tied together, all connected. So now the Trump administration is adopting the woke left position on hate speech. They're adopting the position of the Europeans on hate speech. Wow. Now, to their credit, many people on the right flipped out over this. Richard Hanania wrote, everyone who didn't like the term woke right needs to watch this. They're not even changing the words around. It's copy and paste. Except it's worse because it's the Attorney General talking like this instead of a women's studies professor. He's absolutely right. This is the Attorney General. She actually has guns in her hand. She actually can destroy your life. She can actually, whether the courts uphold it or not, she can destroy your life. In the meantime, she is the government. She is force. She is the police. So for the Attorney General to have this view is 1,000 times worse than some women's studies professor or some kid on campus. So, yeah, left, right. Now, it's not just Richard Hanania who's very critical of anybody on the right anyway, but Chris Rufo, who keeps claiming we need to use the tools of government to, redo our institutions and get rid of the left and to do all this stuff, which sounds a lot like what Pam Bundy's suggesting maybe. But even Chris Rufo, this is too far for him. This is extremely concerning, he writes. The distinction is not between free speech and hate speech, but between free speech and organizing illicit activity, engaging in political violence, depriving others of their civil rights, and committing tax or nonprofit fraud. Yeah, I mean, that's how he would like to go after the cases where but yeah, he's not happy with her. And it gets worse because Matt Walsh, who basically almost declared a civil war the other day, Matt Walsh, quote, there should be social consequences for people who openly celebrate the murder of an innocent man. Social consequences. But there obviously shouldn't be any legal repercussions for hate speech, which is not even a valid or coherent concept. There is no law against saying hurtful things, and there shouldn't be. God, this is the first time, maybe ever, that I actually agree with Matt Walsh. He's absolutely 100% right on this. Probably for wrong reasons, but that's a different question. Yeah, the conservatives, even on the right, are getting it. Dave Rubin even, right? Dave, unbelievably bad take by Bondi, worthy of immediate resignation of an attorney general. I agree completely. Hate speech does not exist. You can say mean things about people. We have very specific limitations, such as direct calls for violence, but amorphous hate speech does not exist. Charlie would never want this. Yep. People are really upset at Pam Bondi, and I wouldn't be surprised. Then she goes on TV, on Fox News, friendly, so she's not going to get harassed there, but she goes on Fox News, and she says, if you want to go and print posters with Charlie's picture for a vigil, you have to let them do it. That is, the business has to let the employees print posters of Charlie's pictures. You have to let them do it. We can prosecute you for that if you don't. We have right now our civil rights unit looking at that. So the government is now going to force businesses to let its employees use business facilities to organize, print, whatever, political stuff. That's new. The government's going to force them. And if they don't agree, they're going to go after them for civil rights violation. I mean, this woman is, I don't think she's nuts. I think she's just stupid. She's incompetent. She certainly should not be Attorney General. And on this, again, Matt Walsh agrees with me. It's shocking today. Matt Walsh agrees with me twice. This is what he says about this particular statement. Get rid of her today. This is insane. Conservatives have fought for decades for the right to refuse service to anyone. We won that fight. Now Pam Bondi wants to roll it all back for no reason. The employee who didn't print the flyer was already fired by his employer. This stuff is being handled successfully through free speech and free markets. This is totally gratuitous and pointless. We need the Attorney General focused on bringing down the left-wing terror cells, not prosecuting Office Depot, for God's sake. Yeah, they're upset because she's gone nuts. She's gone nuts. I mean, she's basically threatening to prosecute businesses who refuse to print flyers, and that the Department of Justice, Civil Rights Division, is looking into cases like that, particularly a case at Office Depot. So yeah, she's there because she will do whatever Trump tells her to do. She will aggressively go after Epstein, I think in this case. She'll, aggressively go after Jeffrey Epstein, and she will back off when Trump tells her to back off. She will do whatever Trump tells her. Now, remember, Attorney General is supposed to be, at least to some extent, an independent entity. It's supposed to be the Department of Justice for the United States, not for the president. Yet she views herself as an attorney for Trump. And look, she's ignorant, and you could tell she's not that smart by her attempt to kind of justify herself. So she posted on Twitter from the Attorney General, Pamela Bondi, an attempt to justify it, right? And I'm not going to read you the whole thing, but she conflates a free speech, and then she says, okay, but it's you violate free speech when you call for somebody's violence, threats, assassinations, but then she conflates that again with, here's what she writes. She says, free speech protects ideas, debate, even dissent, but it does not and will never protect violence. Yeah, that's true. But then she says, it is clear that violent rhetoric is designed to silence others from voicing conservative ideals. Really? Violent rhetoric? Violent rhetoric is completely protected by the First Amendment. Free speech includes violent rhetoric. It does not include threats. It does not include incitement to violence. But to talk in violent terms is not a reason to go after people. I mean, God, you have to arrest almost every podcaster out there. And this idea that violent rhetoric is designed to silence conservative ideals, as if conservatives never use violent rhetoric. Have you ever listened to Matt Walsh or Knowles or any of these guys? They don't threaten, they don't incite, but do they ever use violent rhetoric? Absolutely. As do I. It's so even when she's trying to fix it, she can't get it right. She goes after them. She doesn't understand the distinction. She doesn't know the distinctions. And she's a partisan hack. She's been hired to go after Trump's enemies. She will use whatever means she has. Again, even if she arrests somebody that ultimately will be exonerated by the courts because it's not a violation of the First Amendment, their lives are likely to be ruined. She can do horrible, horrible things to many, many people. And if you add her up with Kash Patel, I mean, at the federal level, law enforcement in this country is an unmitigated disaster of incompetence and complete and utter bias. Complete and utter bias. Complete dedication to Trump rather than to the truth or to justice or, God forbid, to the law. Yep. You cannot dox a conservative family and think you will be brushed off as free speech. I don't know, doxing? Is doxing not free speech? Is doxing violence? I mean, doxing might be really, really inappropriate and immoral and wrong, but is doxing actually violence? Is doxing a punishable crime? She says you cannot call for someone's murder. True. You cannot swat a member of Congress. I don't know what swat means. Do you guys know what swat means? You cannot dox a conservative family. You can't? Yeah, I mean, doxing is not illegal. Not in the United States of America. So, yeah, I mean, she should resign tomorrow. If we had a decent president, if we had a president who cared one iota about the rule of law, free speech, he doesn't. Not even a bit. She would be fired tomorrow. But this is the president, when he was asked about Bondi, he was asked about Bondi by a reporter from ABC. And he said, he was asked about hate speech, and he said, well, you guys at ABC, you guys commit hate speech against me. And that's why I'm suing you. You know, just like I've sued all these other companies that you know, have gone after me, hate speech. I'm suing you all. Yeah, going after you. We're going after you. I mean, this is a president who is going after speech. Right now, he is suing the New York Times. Today, he sued the New York Times for $15 billion for defamation and libel. Now, he called it one of the worst and most degenerate newspapers in the history of our country, becoming a virtual mouthpiece for the radical left Democratic Party, accusing them of lying about your favorite president, my family, business, the American First Movement, MAGA, and our nation as a whole. Now imagine if you could sue any newspaper for lying about the nation as a whole. He's a public figure. The standard for defamation is very high for a public figure. But he doesn't care. The point is, all it is intimidation, right? He'll basically, this is a way to say to the New York Times, I'm going to keep after you. I'm going to disrupt your business. I'm going to go after you, do everything I can. And the purpose of all that is to stop you from doing your job. The purpose of that is to silence your criticism of me. And all the other, you know, media, CBS and others have settled with him. They've just written him a check. And you know that as part of that settlement, okay, they're going to downturn the criticism because they don't want to be sued again, have to settle again. This president is the most anti-free speech president of my lifetime, I don't know enough about the history of presidents before that. But this is just, horrific. He could sue me for calling him a moron, or for, saying his administration is corrupt. For $15 billion, he could sue me. And then what? I'd have to take all my money and defend it against a lawsuit. I couldn't do the show. He would silence me, effectively. So this is a silencing tactic. This is a way to use his power as president, to silence his opposition. It's about as un-American as it gets. It's worse than anything Biden did vis-a-vis free speech. I mean, the lawsuits against the law firms, it's unconscionable that a president would be allowed to do this. I mean, any one of these should be impeachable offenses. All of this is much more significant than the impeachment over the Ukraine phone call in, 2018, 2019. I mean, these things he should be impeached about. We'll get to the corruption in a minute. Another impeachable offense. But it really is amazing to me that he gets away with it. Nobody cares. The conservatives all get all riled up when Pam Bondi says something really, really stupid. But are they going to be upset by all these lawsuits by Donald Trump? Sitting president? It's not just a lawsuit of a private citizen. It's a sitting president. Here's a question for you in terms of free speech. And I'm not sure I know the answer exactly to this. But in terms of how we exactly define free speech, right? Or how do we exactly define incitement to violence? So this is Hassan. This is a socialist guy, massive following on the left, and this is him in a podcast. I'm going to just read you what he says. He says, "Yeah, kill
those motherfuckers and murder those motherfuckers."
Kill those, murder them in the street. Let the streets soak in their fucking red capitalist blood. Yeah, kill them. Now, is that protected speech? Right? Is that protected speech? If he's just talking about capitalists in general, is that incitement? Probably it is protected speech. I'd be curious to see how a Supreme Court would rule about this. This is the kind of violent rhetoric that is probably permissible, unless he's talking about a specific group, unless it's actionable, unless he's talking about specific people. I don't know, those people at BlackRock, go after them. So could he be prosecuted for that? And there were other clips of him basically, broadly speaking, advocating for violence. Not specifically, not go kill him. Not let's meet at 3:00 and burn that down. But generally, violent rhetoric associated with destroying the capitalist world. I think as long as it's broad, vague like that, as long as it's not specific, it's protected speech. It's protected speech. But by the way, put aside protected speech a second, put aside the free speech issue a second. That is Hassan. That is, probably one of the most influential voices now on the far left. By the way, he was very condemnatory of the assassination of Kirk. So, which I found bizarre given given this, given, let the streets be soaked in blood. Of course, it's easy to say stuff like that when it's theoretical. It's different when the streets get soaked with blood and suddenly you realize, whoa, that could be me. Yes. This is who radicalizes. I mean, this guy radicalizes many young people, many Gen Zers. This is who is good friends with Mamdani, who's almost certainly going to win New York. This is a major voice on the left. Major voice on the left. By the way, on what is it? November 13th. November 13th, I'll be in Colorado Springs, and I'll be debating one of the writers, one of the editors, I think, at the Jacobian magazine. So a socialist, a committed, real socialist, will be doing a capitalism versus socialism debate. This is the guy I debated, I think, in 2018 or 2019 on 4 different campuses. Well, this time we'll be debating on one campus. So this will be a talk at the University of Colorado Springs. I hope if you're in the area, if you're in Colorado, certainly if you're in Colorado Springs, but even in other places in Colorado, you'll come over. I'll need all the support I can get, even though it's Colorado Springs, which is generally a conservative, religious conservative place. I'm not sure they'll come out and support me because it's very religious, but it's a university, so you got to believe there'll mostly be leftists there. So it would be great to get one of those get some friendly voices in the audience. I will debate anybody, to the right of Noam Chomsky, pretty much, and anybody to the left of Nick Fuentes, pretty much, or Tucker Carlson, pretty much. I'll debate them to the extent right or left even apply in those cases, but I'll debate them. So yeah, I mean, I was approached here by an organization that's organizing this debate, the Steamboat Institute. As I said, it was Colorado Springs, November 13th, and it should be interesting. I've also been contacted by a leading conservative publication in the UK to do some debates for them in London, probably early next year. So I'm looking forward to that. So I like this. I like the fact that there are quite a few people out there, left and right, that are eager to have me come and debate, represent capitalism, represent freedom, represent that side. Also, of course, I did a lot of debates at the. I did a number of debates at the festival, Let the Light Shine In, or something like that, festival in Wales this summer with hundreds of people participating. Those were good. And there, I debated, mainstream academic leftists. All right, back to the TikTok deal. I mean, this has to be one of the most ridiculous, stupid things in history. Again, this is one of those where Trump is completely ignoring the law. We talked about that yesterday. I won't even go there. This impeachable offense, just ignoring the law that says that TikTok needs to be shut down. But as I said yesterday, Trump and the Chinese have come to some kind of deal around TikTok. The TikTok will be somehow spun off. American investors will come in and participate. Oracle is going to play some significant role here, including it will continue to house everything that is, it will serve as the cloud facility for all the videos and everything else that happens on TikTok. But the fear always was that TikTok was using a Chinese algorithm, and that even though the information was stored on Oracle's servers, the Chinese had a back door and could basically access whatever information they wanted. The fear was also that the Chinese were using the algorithm to actually manipulate what Americans were seeing and creating dissent in America, throwing oil in the fire of the left-right split in America, but also providing significant Chinese propaganda on TikTok and using the algorithm in order to spread it. And these were the complaints, and this is why Congress decided to shut it down. Signed by the president, approved by the Supreme Court, ignored by Donald Trump. But then, so now there's a deal, and it turns out in this deal that TikTok is going to still use the Chinese algorithm. It's going to lease it from ByteDance, the Chinese company, and it's still going to use the same algorithm, still be managed by ByteDance, although with some supervision from the parent American company that is going to be leasing it from them. It's going to be something in between. It's a licensing deal. At least that's what the Chinese are saying, that this is going to be a licensing deal. Partially because Beijing wants to be seen as exporting technology to the United States, right? That's a big prestige thing. But it's a complete sellout. It's a complete sellout. Bessent, the Treasury Secretary, said, I mean, this is unbelievable that he said this. He said that the spun-off app would be controlled by American investors. But notice this. But preserve some, quote, Chinese characteristics. So Americans are going to provide the funding, and China's going to manage the thing. China's going to run the thing. China's going to provide the algorithm. China's going to brainwash our kids. China's going to run things. I mean, are we becoming China or what? Is China winning? I mean, economically, it's a basket case. But strategically, on every single front that I can see today, China is winning. Or America is losing, is a better quote. I mean, Trump billed himself as tough on China. Trump is like the weakest president imaginable on China. And you will see when we get the deal at the end of the day, when this deal comes around, this will be an unbelievable deal that's good for China. Anyway, it's going to be interesting to see what happens, and what the details of this deal are. But for Bessent to even say preserve some Chinese characteristics without flinching and without embarrassing himself, I mean, we just got a lot of either unbelievably incompetent, not very smart, or just corrupt people in this administration saying whatever they need to say in order for Trump to like them. Anyway, we'll see. And of course, the law says that if TikTok is going to continue, it has to be fully divested from TikTok. But is this fully divested from TikTok? From the Chinese, from the Chinese. But is TikTok fully divested from the Chinese if it's leasing the algorithm, which is the heart of the whole thing? How does that work? Is a licensing deal with ByteDance fully separate, fully divested? I mean, I don't know. This is some crazy stuff. Crazy stuff. The good news is for Oracle, which keeps us a cloud deal, might be one of the investors in the New Deal. I'm still curious to see if the United States government isn't invested in the New Deal. But it does seem like, I think as with this military shift away from China and towards Latin America, Donald Trump wants a good relationship with Xi. He likes Xi. He likes dictators. And he wants a good relationship with China. And I think the shift is real. I think he really strategically, we saw this in the document that the Defense Department has drafted, which says the United States should shift away from Europe and away from Asia and shift totally to our own hemisphere. This is part of that. This is part of completely surrendering really the world outside of maybe Latin America to China and Russia. And Europe, if they want to take a piece. All right. And why is the government negotiating this? So I know I'm going to say an ugly word right now, but according to the New York Times, big story in the New York Times today. Big story in the New York Times. If this is true, and I'm going to say if this is true because, yeah, New York Times can be biased and so on, but it certainly lines up as true. It certainly factual seems true. I haven't seen anybody really contradict any of the factual evidence. And it certainly seems plausible, the causal relationship that the New York Times is asserting here. See, here's the story. Sheikh Tahnoun, who is in charge of the Emirati Royal Sovereign Wealth Fund, right? He's the guy in charge of UAE, United Arab Emirates Sovereign Wealth Fund, which is big. It's oil money and it's sizable. Make a lot of big investments. Anyway, at some point earlier this year, the Sheikh decided to invest $2 billion in Binance, a crypto exchange, using coins from a crypto company owned and operated by two families. The Peikoff family, yes, the Peikoff, who's going around the Middle East doing negotiating and going to Russia doing negotiating. The Peikoff family, and, I mean, I'm sure you'll be shocked to hear, the Trump family. So here's a sheik right in the midst of all the stuff going on in the Middle East, where Peikoff is shuttling back and forth and talking to regularly, is investing in a company in a way that massively benefits another company owned by Peikoff's family and Trump's family. $2 billion. So that's one side of this transaction. Why would he do that? What can Trump give him? Well, here's what he gives him. We know this because we talked about this. I talked about this when it happened. Right? Just about a month later, the Sheikh secures access to valuable artificial intelligence chips in an agreement with the White House, an agreement which, of course, involved Steve Witkoff, David Sachs, and Trump. Sachs is Trump's AI and crypto czar. But basically, a Trump administration exchange. You fund this thing we're doing, and we'll give you valuable AI chips that we have restricted the Chinese from getting. And you can buy as many as you want. And this is the UAE. And granted, a moderate, but still the Middle East. And there's still real chance that this stuff could land up in China. Now, it turns out that while all this was going on, there was an official at the National Security Council, a guy named Feith, F-R-E-I-T-H, a son of the neocon Feith, although I don't know that he's a neocon. He's worked, this is his second time in the Trump White House, so he's probably not a neocon. Anyway, at the National Security Council, Feith and a couple of others raised alarm bells around us. You know, Feith had returned to the second term, as Senior Director for Technology on the National Security Council. And he pushed what he and his colleagues called the America First AI Chips Plan, which would restrict foreign access to the most advanced chips for at least a year. But Sheikh Tahnoun wanted them now. So in early April, just after Sheikh Tahnoun visited Washington, D.C., Trump fired 6 Security Council officials, including Feith. And of course, this dismissal came after roughly a 30-minute meeting between Mr. Trump and guess who? Our favorite provocateur, Luma. Luma said her opposition to Mr. Feith had to do in part with his father's political views when he was serving in the administration of President George W. Bush. She said it did not pertain to chips negotiations. Yeah, right. She's certainly one to be believed. Now, this is pretty amazing. Just more from the article. In May, Mr. Witkoff's son, Zach, announced the first of the deals at a conference in Dubai. One of Sheikh Tahnoun's investment firms would deposit $2 billion into World Liberty Financial, that is Witkoff's and Trump's investment firm, a cryptocurrency startup founded by Witkoff and Trump's. 2 weeks later, the White House agreed to allow the UAE access to hundreds of thousands of the world's most advanced and scarce computer chips, a crucial tool in the high-stakes race to dominate artificial intelligence. Many of the chips would go to G42, a sprawling technology firm controlled by Sheikh Tahnoun, despite national security concerns that the chip would be shared with China. Yeah, I mean, you can excuse this, you can rationalize it, you can say, oh no, this is just conspiracy theories. But these things happened. We know that the event actually happened. We know of the firings. We know of the sequence. We know exactly what happened. We can see, follow the money is often the advice you get if you want to find out what's going on. Follow the money. Trump family, the Sheikh. Again, probably the most corrupt U.S. administration in our nation's history. At least, I don't know the nation's history. Certainly in my lifetime. You think Hunter Biden, that was bad. Oh my God, Hunter Biden was an amateur. And this is already true of the first Trump administration. Remember that his son-in-law got a $2 billion investment into his private equity fund, the first private equity fund he'd ever raised from the Saudis right after Trump left office. So yeah, no relations. It had nothing to do with the fact that Trump had been president and was very friendly to the Saudis. There's no relationship between those things. This is just really unbelievably corrupt. Unbelievable corruption. When Trump was asked, so this is a reporter asks him as he's heading towards the helicopter, should a president in office be engaged in so much business activity? Trump says, I'm not. My kids are running the business. Where are you from? The reporter says, Australian Broadcast Corporation. Trump says, listen to this. You're hurting Australia very much right now, and they want to get along with me. Your leader is coming to see me soon. I'm going to tell him about you. You set a bad tone. you can get a nicer tone. Quiet. He's not going to backtrack from the corruption. He's going to embrace it. And he's going to go after anybody who even has a tone of criticism. This is your president. This is who many of you voted for. You cannot criticize him, even if you're the media, whose job it is, to a large extent, is to criticize politicians. That's what they're there for. A criticism immediately elicits a threat. Oh, your prime minister's coming. I'm going to tell you how bad you are. And, you know, I might condition cooperation with Australia on you getting fired, or your network getting demoted, or whatever. Your license being taken away from you. Remember, this is Trump who's threatened a number of times, and seems like they might actually do it in terms of taking the broadcast license away from ABC and NBC. CBS is now owned by somebody right-wing, and Barry Weiss is going to be run the editorial staff of CBS News. So he's pretty safe at CBS, and he cut that deal where they paid him a lot of money. But NBC and ABC are not playing ball with him, so he very well might try to take away their license to broadcast. All right, let's see. A couple of things on the Fed. So the Fed will meet tomorrow for 2 days to discuss interest rate policy, monetary policy more broadly. They're likely to lower interest rates. There'll be a vote. The vote will be split. It won't be unanimous. I think there'll be 3 different parties to the vote. There'll be those who want to keep interest rates flat because CPI, price inflation, is still 3%, which is higher than the Fed's target of 2%. And they believe by keeping interest rates high, CPI will come down. There were those who will want to reduce interest rates by 0.5%. And then now, because supposedly, employment is suffering, job market is really bad, the economy might go into recession, and they think by lowering interest rates, they will save the economy and help Trump. And this is what Trump wants, more importantly. So there'll be some votes for decreasing interest rates by 50 basis points. And then there'll be Powell's view, which is to decrease interest rates by 25 basis points. I think Powell will win the day at the end, but it will be a split vote. Anyway, Trump was trying to get Lisa Cook fired. He fired her in an effort to have her not be at this meeting. Lisa Cook, who, by the way, I don't think is qualified to be at the Federal Reserve, but she is, she is there. And I don't think Trump has the authority to fire her, but she's there. Anyway, Lisa Cook will probably vote with Powell, so not the way Trump wants. So he wanted her off, and so he went to the appellate court to try to get her, to try to get them to accept his firing of her, so that there would be one less vote in favor of only a 25 basis points reduction in interest rates. Anyway, the appellate court ruled against him. In an emergency ruling Monday, they ruled that President Trump cannot remove Lisa Cook from the Federal Reserve's Board of Governors before this week's pivotal meeting. 2 weeks ago, Trump announced that he would be removing Cook of allegations of mortgage fraud after an investigation was launched by the Justice Department following a referral from the director of the Federal Housing Finance Agency. Although it turns out now that the facts on which the Federal Housing Finance Agency based its referral were flawed now. So there's information now that's come out that's in Lisa Cook's favor, even though, no matter what, this was not a big deal. This is just an excuse. It wasn't a real justification. Anyway, she will not be voting. On the other hand, good news for Trump. His nominee to replace a retiring Federal Reserve board member, Stephen Miron, who's his economic counsel, he was confirmed by the Senate today to serve on the Federal Reserve Board. So he will be there at the meeting to vote Trump's way. So Trump will have a representative on the board. Miran, this is very unusual for Miran to get this position because he is still working at the White House. So this is the anti-Fed independence, if ever there has been one. He is both at economic advisor to Trump and on the Federal Reserve Board at the same time. So it'll be interesting. We won't know the vote, I think, on Thursday, but we will know the decision. My guess is 25 basis point reduction. I'll be surprised if it's anything else, but of course it's possible that they vote for 50 and appease Trump, which is always a possibility. All right, Luigi Mangione. Remember Luigi Mangione, who assassinated the CEO of United Healthcare, was today, faced a judge today who reviewed the accusations against him and actually threw out the two most serious accusations. Both of them claimed that he did what he did in order to terrorize employees of the company and to terrorize the general public. So he was being accused of first-degree murder, which in the state of New York only applies to very extreme cases. State of New York, first-degree murder can only apply if the victim is a judge, a police officer, a first responder, or the killing involved a murder for hire or an intent to commit terrorism. And the judge ruled that none of those qualified, and therefore he will be persecuted under the second-degree murder charges instead of first-degree murder charges. I always thought first-degree was premeditated, and second was a crime of passion, but I guess that's not the way it is in New York. So even though it was premeditated, clearly, he is going to face two murder charges, or he will one murder charge, but it'll be a second-degree murder charge plus a bunch of weapons possession charges. It turns out, so the judge says, the defendant's apparent objective, as stated in his writings, was not to threaten, intimidate, or coerce, but rather to draw attention to what he perceived as the greed of the insurance industry. Sounds a little sympathetic to the murderer. This is the judge. Sounds sympathetic. Phil Magnus writes, apparently, political assassinations in New York City are not threatening, intimidating, or coercive anymore, as long as their perpetrator pens a crazy anti-capitalist manifesto about greed. There you go. There you go. All right. Let's see. All right. A quick update with regard to what's going on with Russia and NATO. We talked about this a few days ago. But the verbiage out of Russia is just escalating. So something is going on here. They're not doing well on the battlefield. They're gaining inches at a massive cost of human lives. I mean, think about how many lives have been lost to the Russians. They've taken well over 1 million casualties. That is a death and real injuries, really bad injuries. Over 1 million. I mean, think about it. Vietnam was a catastrophe for the United States, and 65,000 Americans died there. Hundreds of thousands of Russians have died in Ukraine. For Russia itself, I think the number is 18,000 Russians died in Afghanistan, and they left in defeat. Hundreds of thousands have died in Ukraine, and they're still fighting. I mean, the extent to which this is This war is a defeat for the Russians is unbelievable. I mean, the numbers in terms of deaths are World War II-like numbers. And yet they're fighting Ukraine, which is a nothing militarily. Was nothing militarily. And you can tell that Russia's super frustrated. They're super frustrated. It's like this war was supposed to last a week, 3 weeks max. And it's, going to be 3 years soon. No, it's more than 3 years. Sorry, it's going to be 4 years in February. And they've achieved very little. Very little. And they're achieving right now very little. Again, you'll hear of an advance here, an advance there, but they're inches. Inches. And now they're starting to poke NATO out of frustration. They need a diversion. They need to get the Russian people excited about something. What you're seeing is escalating rhetoric. Not only the drones flying into Poland, but escalating rhetoric about the fact that this is a war with NATO, or that a war with NATO is coming. They said that if Poland or NATO establish a no-fly zone over Ukraine, and if NATO uses its aircraft to shoot down drones over Ukraine, that means a war between NATO and Russia. Medvedev also said that he will go after any member of the European Union that provides Ukraine with loans backed by seized Russian assets. And he will do so in all possible international and national courts, threatening, quote, that in some cases, Russia will bypass court proceedings, which means use violence. So he is suggesting violence and real war with NATO. And I think these are all empty threats because they'd be eviscerated by NATO. But it is getting scary. I mean, the other thing is that Ukraine is having incredible success at targeting oil infrastructure all over Russia. I just read that they actually just hit a military base, a Russian military base on the Pacific Ocean, all the way in eastern Ukraine, eastern Russia, all the way in the Pacific Ocean. Their reach is incredible. They've done some amazing, smart attacks, and they are taking out as much of the oil infrastructure that the Russians have as possible. At the same time, Trump is doing nothing. All his threats against Putin are zero. Putin has been emboldened since he met with Trump in Alaska. He viewed that meeting as America's weakness. Trump is making demands on the Europeans he knows they won't meet, so that he can use that as an excuse not to do anything to Russia, because at the end of the day, he likes Putin. Putin's his friend. He doesn't want to hurt Putin. He doesn't want sanctions on Russia. He admires Putin. And maybe Putin has something on him. We don't know. Putin's really only real success right now, only real success, is his complete manipulation of Trump. His complete manipulation, having Trump in his hand, in his pocket, or whatever you want to call it. That's the only thing going well for Putin right now. On the battlefield, it's going terrible. All right, finally, let's talk about the Gaza Strip. Before we get to Gaza Strip, one other story about Israel that's interesting. Sources are saying now, you remember when the attack on Qatar happened, the White House said, we didn't know about this. We only heard about it when the missiles were in the air. We couldn't stop it. Even if we opposed it, we couldn't stop it. Well, according to Israeli sources now, the White House knew an hour before the strike happened. Trump never argued against it, never said don't do it. There were discussions between him and Netanyahu before the strike even happened. and including through military channels and political channels. So this idea that Trump didn't know is BS. Now, it's a line that the White House carries in order to appease the Qataris, in order for the Qataris to think, the Qataris to believe that he wasn't involved. So he can continue to be their friend and their ally. Maybe they'll invest in his cryptocurrency as well. Trump continues to say, no, he didn't like it. He didn't like the attack. He was against the attack, but he couldn't stop it because it was too late. So just to fill you in, because we talked about that last week, about what Trump knew or didn't know, but according to Israelis, quote, Trump knew about the strike before the missiles were launched. First, there was a discussion on the political level between Netanyahu and Trump, but afterwards, in military channels, Trump didn't say no. Now, again, it's not official. Netanyahu's not going to call Trump a liar. But some people within the Israeli administration are calling him a liar. I think as of this morning, Israel time, Israel launched its major operation that it had indicated that it was going to do into Gaza City in the northern Gaza Strip. Now, Gaza City is the more populous area in Gaza. It is at the heart of where Hamas has been and is. It is where there are still remaining whole neighborhoods and buildings standing, where there were several 100,000 residents still living there. Over the last few weeks, Israel has told the residents to evacuate, which is not something an army committing genocide would do. Evacuate. We don't want to kill you. Now, doesn't sound like genocide to me. Anyway, put that aside. So they estimate about 300,000 Gazans have already evacuated Gaza City. And as of this morning, Israel has, we've seen Israeli tanks entering into Gaza City, and the operation to basically take over the city, to clear it from every Hamas element, to destroy its terrorist infrastructure, including all the tunnels that are in Gaza City, including under the hospitals. That is the goal. The goal will ultimately for Israel to occupy this territory until there's a different solution. There are real risks here. Gaza City is likely to be heavily booby-trapped by Hamas. One of the ways in which Israel will deal with the booby traps is basically if you destroy a building, then you don't have to deal with the booby traps, and that's probably the best way to do it. Flatten as many buildings as you can, because if you enter a building to try to clear it, you're susceptible to those booby traps. And a number of Israel's taken quite a few casualties when they have tried to go in and clear buildings. It's much safer to just knock the building down. And this is why they feel evacuation is so necessary. It's going to be interesting to see this operation, how it moves ahead. It really does seem like, with the operation in Qatar and the entry now into Gaza City, it really does seem like, 2 years after the fact, that this government is now serious about actually defeating Hamas and defeating the Palestinians in Gaza and taking control over the place. Again, this is what should have been done in October of 2023. This should have been done immediately after October 7th. I don't know why it had to wait for 2 years. I know why. Hesitancy, cowardice, and hostages. I guess the hostage numbers now are small enough that Netanyahu is willing to risk their death in order to destroy Hamas. That is the only calculation I think that ultimately makes sense. It is better 2 years late than never, there's no question. So I'm happy they're doing it now. I wish they'd taken out the Qatari Hamas 2 years ago. Just like they did, they took out the leader of Hamas, if you remember. They took out the exiled leader of Hamas in Iran, in his bedroom, in a Islamic Revolutionary Guard facility, which was one of the most stunning intelligence operations ever. But all forgotten because of the beepers and because of the Iran war and everything else, but that was astounding that they could do that. The Iranians should have known better at that point than to attack Israel, because they should have known that the Israeli intelligence is infiltrated into every aspect of their lives. So yeah, I will be tracking this Gaza city operation and let you know how it goes and how it evolves. There was a major story in one of the Israeli newspapers, which I think was interesting, giving credit for a lot of the Mossad intelligence, but not just intelligence, actual action on the ground in Iran, in Tehran, to female agents. To female agents who, do the whole array of both intelligence gathering and also, again, sabotage and military action in Iran, including cozying up and seducing, I guess, leaders within Iran. It was the first time the role of females in the Mossad has been really highlighted in this way. And it is interesting enough, it's a plot line, it's the plot line of a TV series that I think is on Apple TV called Tehran, which follows a female Mossad agent in Iran working to assassinate, I think, the head of the Defense Department or something like that. Yeah, Tehran is worth watching. Of course, in Tehran, things don't go as well as they did in real life, which is interesting. The TV show was more skeptical about Mossad's ability to pull it off than reality. In reality, Mossad is even better than what they portrayed on TV, which I don't think that's true of any other spy agency, or call it that way. Mossad is unbelievable, really unbelievable. All right, let's see. That, I think, is the news for Tuesday, September 16th. All right, so we will move to our super chat, and I will encourage you to continue to ask questions. We have a lot from yesterday and a few from today. We still haven't met our first hour goal, and we're into the second hour. So please consider supporting the show with a sticker or with a question. I will answer all the questions today. We're not really limited in terms of time, so I will have the time to go over it all. We'll go over all of it, and so you can ask more and support the show more, because we need to make our second hour goal. All right, let's see. I also want to tell you about our sponsors. We have 3 sponsors. The Ayn Rand Institute is encouraging people to sign up for the Ayn Rand live classes. These are courses. They're going to be offered online, live, but you can take them recorded. You don't have to show up live for class, but you can if you want. You can take the classes at your own pace. You can do homework if you want, or not if you don't want. You can, in a sense, audit the classes. You can determine the level of engagement that you want. It's up to you. These classes are going to be starting in October. There are 3 of them: the philosophy of objectivism, which is just a straight course on the philosophy; the philosophy through the fiction, which goes through the fiction and how the fiction illustrates the philosophy; and a course on work, which I think Don Watkins is teaching. The other 2, heavy involvement of Onkar Ghate. These are excellent courses for anybody interested in deepening their understanding of the philosophy, and anybody kind of with questions about work and career. I think the course is really, really valuable, the course on work. So I encourage you to sign up, and you can do so on aynrand.org/start here, aynrand.org/start here, and click on the Ayn Rand Institute Live. And you can get a 10% discount on the rate. I'm not sure what the rate is, but you can get a 10% discount. And all you need is the discount code 25 YBS10. 25 YBS10. That's a discount code to get a 10% discount. Hendershot Wealth Management offers a product that can significantly save you money on capital gains. It will actually allow you to defer massive amounts of capital gains well into the future, and thus save you a huge amount of money. If you do the math, you can see how much can be saved just by the deferral. You can get a lot of insight into this product and see if it's something that suits you. But also, I think you should watch this anyway because I think it's super interesting, and a lot of you will find it interesting. Is my interview with Robert Hendershot on my YouTube channel. If you go to the playlist for sponsors, yeah, you can listen to that and see. You can go then to Hendershot Wealth, Hendershot with 2 T's, hendershotwealth.com/YBS, and sign up to have a discussion with somebody from the company to see if this is a product that's suitable for you. No hard sell, just does it work for you or doesn't it work for you? Enric, thank you. Thank you for the support. Really appreciate it. Enric did a sticker. You too can do a sticker. It's easy. And finally, Alex Epstein. Alex Epstein is the world expert on all things to do with climate change, energy, fossil fuels. The author of Fossil Future, and a real influencer when it comes to energy policy in the United States today. A big influencer within the Republican Party, and even within the Trump administration. So I encourage you to follow him and read his stuff. If you want to know what's going on in this world of energy, he's the guy. If you want to become a better communicator about energy, he's your guy. alexepstein.substack.com. alexepstein.substack.com. Follow Alex. He's phenomenal. And finally, if you want to support the Yaron Brook show on a regular, sustained basis, because this show is made possible by you, couldn't exist without you. You are all the fuel that makes this show possible. Without the financial support you provide, there is no Yaron Brook show. There is no Yaron Brook show. So please support it to sustain its existence. And best way to do that is to make a monthly subscription. You can do that on Patreon or on PayPal. Patreon, I think, is easier. Patreon.com and then patreon.com or paypal.com and then put your Yaron Brook show. And become a monthly supporter of the show. And that is the best. Now, in the meantime, right now, today, right here, we need $36 more to make our first hour goal and $286 to make our second hour goal. So think about it. Can you help get us to where we need to be? Can you provide a trade here? Value for value. All right. Let's see. Alexis. Alexis says, can these morons realistically bypass the First Amendment? Probably not, in the sense that it'll be thrown out in court. But can you, I said this before, can you really harass people? Can you really disrupt people's lives? Can you threaten people like Trump is doing with the media, threatening it all the time? Yes. Can you withdraw the broadcasting licenses for NBC and CBS and ABC? Probably. Could you get away with it? Probably. The FCC has that power. So they can get away with a lot. But if they literally arrest somebody for hate speech, that'll be thrown out by the courts. That won't stand. But they can do a lot in the gray areas and where government has just power to just inflict real damage on private parties who they are unhappy with. the problem with the mixed economy. The mixed economy just gives government this power over private enterprise that is really, in many respects, unlimited. Christos, the government can destroy you by dragging you for years in courts, where you may have to pay a fortune in lawyers, but they have unlimited resources from taxes. Absolutely true. Even if you are exonerated, you are truly lost. Yes. I mean, people are like that. People are being bankrupted by having to defend themselves in court, let's say IRS court, even if they win in the end. So it's very difficult. The government can Giuliani invented the idea that you could throw RICO claims against financial malfeasance. And RICO, they confiscate your property. They freeze your assets before the trial, before you're even proven guilty. And thus, they destroy your business before you even go to court. I mean, the government is brutal. Force is brutal. The initiation of force is evil, and the government wields force. There are very few limitations, sadly, about force. Dave Dean, thank you for the sticker, $20. Really, really appreciate that. Mary Aline, thank you for the sticker. Let's see, who else did stickers? Enric, I said, I think. William, thank you. And let's see, Nick, thank you. And Stephen Harper, Catherine, thank you guys for stickers. You too can help the show with just like $3, like Mary Aline did. A sticker, and it all adds up. It all adds up. We're only $13 away from our first hour goal, which would be great. Not your average algorithm. Why do people want mindlessness and outrage? They want to be animals. Being a human being is too hard. Being a human being requires thinking. It requires effort. It requires responsibility. It requires, it's hard. And there's a sense in which I don't think they think in these terms, but there's a certain comfort, laziness in being mindless, in being an animal. You just follow the tribe. It's easy. And people have always been and still are attracted to that. Attracted to not living, really, as a human being. It's sad. It's what a waste. And they usually inflict a lot of harm on the rest of us. It's the anti-conceptual mentality Ayn Rand talked about. It's the missing link, the people who don't rise to the conceptual ability. And they're the ones making it hard for the rest of us. Now, is being a human being too hard? It's not too hard. But for some people, it's hard enough. Or they've never learned. They've never taught themselves. They've never been taught of the upside, of the benefit, of the wonders, of the happiness, of the achievement, of the success, of actually engaging, thinking for yourself and engaging and living. That's a massive failure of our educational system, among others. Tessa, do you think people can actually suffer from TDS? Is it not an anti-concept? Yeah, it's certainly an anti-concept. It doesn't exist. There's no such thing. Are there people who are emotionalistic when it comes to Trump? Yes. And you want to call that Trump derangement syndrome, fine. But when you include in that people who rationally critique him, who have consistently over the years critiqued him and been right, then the concept loses all meaning. So the people out there all the time who respond to everything emotionally. If there's TDS, there's also Biden derangement syndrome and Kamala Harris derangement syndrome and I don't know, anything derangement syndrome. Any stance that somebody else takes that's derived from emotionalism that you don't like, you call it a derangement syndrome. Not very useful or helpful. But yes. I think it's an invalid concept. And it's a way to stop a debate, a discussion, right? Oh, you've just got Trump derangement syndrome. What are you even supposed to say? No, I don't? Define your terms? I mean, anybody who uses that accusation is not worth engaging with. Oh, it's Tucker derangement syndrome. Interesting. All right. Roland, another week in Florence. That's another week of me being jealous. Enjoy your time there. You should be jealous, absolutely. Thank you. That is my goal for another week. We'll see. Michael asks, have you been to Iceland? Thoughts? Could we theoretically get through objectivism, get enough objectivists to invade in the next 20 years due to their unsuspecting nature? No. Have you ever been to Iceland? I have been to Iceland. I've been to Iceland once. I gave a talk, and I gave a couple of talks there at the university in Iceland. It is too cold for an objectivist invasion. We value life too much. It's too cold. It's too barren. It's beautiful for a tourist. It's a gorgeous place. It's really beautiful. I mean, if you like rugged waterfalls, mountains, fjords, I mean, it has everything. Hot springs. But it's cold. I was there in October, and it was cold. Colder than Michigan. And it's barren. I mean, the reason there were only 250,000 people in Iceland, it's because in the entire world of 8 billion people, there are only 250,000 people who can tolerate that cold and isolation and darkness and ruggedness. That's it. 250,000. Yeah, it's very windy. And the wind makes it like much, much, much colder. Cold. Too cold for objectivism. Weather's an important value. Warmth is an important value, put it that way. We're not Eskimos, we're objectivists. There's a t-shirt for you. Alexa says, how's the Thatcher show prep going? Or did you forget again? I did not forget. The problem is I had it scheduled on the weekend of the 18th, and now I have something else scheduled on the weekend of the 18th. So I probably won't do a show that weekend. So I have to figure out when I'm going to do it. But no, it's on my calendar for that weekend. I'm moving on my calendar to somewhere else. So it won't be exactly on her birthday, but I will try to do it around that time. But I do remember it's calendared, it's written down. That always helps my memory when things are written down. As for prep, yeah, I'm behind on prep, but that's part of the course. I'm always behind on prep. Liam, are we already in a quasi-fascist dictatorship? No, we're not in a dictatorship. It's just not a dictatorship yet. If the next year's elections, 2026 elections are called off, or if the 2028 elections are called off, then we're in a dictatorship. But we're not. We're in a quasi-fascist economic system, right, where the government is heavily involved in the economy. But yeah, we're not in a dictatorship. Let's not exaggerate the state we're in. Why is Lex Fridman ghosting you? I don't know that he is, but he might be because, I might make him uncomfortable because of the strong, uncompromising stances that I take, where he tends to want to find middle ground. I think the Israeli-Palestinian thing. He came to my talk at the University of Texas on Israel. They might have turned him off. He might have thought I was too aggressive. I don't know. Although if he's followed me, he probably knew that already. But I don't know that he's ghosting me. I mean, he might just be busy. He might just not answer emails because he only answers emails from a few people and he's just super busy and he's busier than he's ever been. I don't know. I'm not assuming the worst. There's no reason to. Crypto fanatic. Nick Fuentes said the Jews are a greater threat to the US than Iran or Islam. and Trump should arm Iran with nuclear weapons because it's the only way to stand against Jewish global dominance. Yeah, I mean, that's Nick Fuentes. It's meaningless, it's stupid, it's ignorant, but it's Nick Fuentes. This is how he gets his Groipa army, or whatever you want to call it, all riled up and excited. The anti-Semitism is essential to his appeal. James, how come evil is so good at finding flaws in the good? Shouldn't these people be completely incompetent? Well, I mean, they're incompetent in dealing with nature and dealing with reality, and yet they know people. They know particularly flawed people because they are themselves flawed. They understand flawed people. I mean, Ellsworth Toohey is a good example. His understanding is people. He doesn't understand nature. Doesn't understand reality. Couldn't build anything. But he can exploit people's weaknesses because he understands. His weaknesses are their weaknesses, and he understands that. They're oriented towards people, not towards reality or nature. Michael, to reach the level of depravity of celebrating October 7th or Charlie Kirk's murder requires training, some type of conditioning from evil college professors. Yes, there's no question. It has to come from real passion. It has to come from a real disintegration of any kind of value system, where all you care about, all you can see, all you can believe in is this intersectionality, oppressor-oppressed. It comes from a diet that they are fed in university of oppressive actions, murders, genocides, killing, wars, all that present the West as evil and bad and horrible, and the oppressed nations as victims and good and beautiful and noble, you know, Rousseau-like noble savages. And the professors just keep on hopping that, and example after example after example after example. And it also, violence becomes just, that's the way people deal with one another, right? That's the world. There's no other way to deal with one another other than violence. It's a zero-sum world. In that sense, again, the right and the left are very similar. It's a zero-sum world. The only way to advance is through violence. Therefore, those who have advanced must be those who committed the most violence. And therefore, they are the bad guys. And it's okay to be violent against them. The Doodle Bunny, they don't kill you because you're a Nazi. They call you a Nazi so they can kill you. Yeah, I think that's right. But I don't think they even know what the word means, what the concept means. I think they throw it around because they know it's really, really bad. And they want to label anybody they don't like as really, really bad. And then if you keep doing that, and you associate the Nazis with pure evil, then you kind of weaken resistance to violence. And look, most of the people who call you a Nazi, are not going to kill you. They're too cowardly, or they don't really want violence. They just do it to fit in. But all it takes is one, like we saw with Charlie Kirk's murderer. All it takes is one. And then they jump in support of that person. And hopefully they lose their jobs. Christian, how has Mexico been able to raise its minimum wage without a significant negative impact on employment? Mexico's minimum wage policy is being used as a model for success by advocates. You know, I don't know how they do it. I don't know. I don't know much about the minimum wage in Mexico, but my guess is that they're doing two things. One is they're raising the minimum wage slowly at about the pace in which productivity is increasing, so that the effects are minimal, right? So this is the rate at which wages would grow anyway, right? Minimum wage is zero, I say, but that doesn't mean anybody earns zero other than interns. So wages are going to creep up, even the wages of the least productive. They're going to creep up with productivity. If you can set the minimum wage at a level that does not disrupt unemployment, very low, and then keep raising it with productivity, it won't create unemployment or create very little. And that brings me to the second point, which is, how do you know it hasn't had a negative impact on employment? That is, you don't have an alternative world in which minimum wage doesn't exist and where maybe more Mexicans are employed. Maybe more young Mexicans are employed. Now, again, I don't have in front of me and I don't have the knowledge of what unemployment rate right now is in Mexico, what it is among young people, what it is in the poorest areas, and what the minimum wage is relative and how it's changed relative to productivity. You'd have to get all of that data in order to be able to analyze it. But I do know one thing, and that is the laws of economics don't change once you cross the border to Mexico. So they're doing something that is not disrupting supply and demand. All right. Clark, when you pass, would you want a tombstone next to Ayn Rand and Leonard Peikoff? Then in a few hundred years, when the three of you are super famous, people can pay homage to you all at the same time. No. I mean, that would be unbelievably pretentious of me. I don't consider myself at the level of Ayn Rand and Leonard Peikoff. I don't consider myself that special. I mean, special, but not that special. No, I think it would be unbelievable. I mean, Ayn Rand was a genius. Leonard Peikoff was a genius student who did for her work, preserved her work and made sure that it got the respect it deserved and the treatment it deserved, and then made sure that by writing OPA that it was self-perpetuating, and by founding the institute, and by promoting the books, and by doing a lot of different things, making sure that her books would go in perpetuity. None of my achievements, none of what I've done rises to that level. I mean, and I don't know that anybody's ever going to, I don't know that I'll ever be a famous person in that sense. Ayn Rand and Leonard Peikoff will be, and maybe I'll be remembered as one of the first CEOs of the Ayn Rand Institute, and a public commentator maybe into the future, but I don't know. I don't know. I do think, when I die, I think the simplest thing is to cremate and spread the ashes somewhere. I have no real interest in a gravesite, in a tombstone, in anything like that. What happens after I die, I don't really care, and I don't. The only value of it is, I'd say, is what my children and what my wife, if I die before her, want. That's the only consideration I would have. If they want a place to go to, right, to commemorate my life or something like that, then fine. But other than that, I have no interest in it. And if you guys demand it, we want to celebrate Yaron, whatever. I just don't think in terms of legacy in that sense. Michael, to mistake feeling for thought will only exacerbate emotional difficulties and cause more potential for violence. Yes, I mean, if you think that decisions should be made through emotions, you will fail in life. That'll only create more frustration, more resentment, more envy, and more mistakes, violence being one of those. And the envy, resentment, hostility will generate ultimately violence. Yep. Wes, thank you for the $50. Really, really appreciate that. That's brought us a little closer to our second hour goal. We're well into that second hour. We'll see if some of you can help us get to that goal. All right. Let me change this. Yeah, $168 to that second hour goal. Clark says, do you think Donald Trump actually cared one iota when Charlie Kirk passed? I don't think he would care if his wife or kids died. He will use any loss as marketing material. I don't know. I don't want to psychologize him to that extent. I think as a narcissist, he probably doesn't care that much about others. But I don't want to speculate about how much he cared about anybody, his wife, kids, or this. He definitely used it for good marketing, which he's very good at. Raymond, I think this is like a 4-part question. My friend is in a game development club, and many of the people don't do basic due diligence, or are lazy, or irrational. So he will pander to them by appreciating their minor efforts before criticizing because they don't accept direct criticism. Therefore, he concludes that sometimes appeasing, bending to people's irrational emotion works or is the right move in principle. It has to be destructive, right move. And then he says, in principle, it has to be destructive. In principle, it has to be destructive because of its appeasement of irrationality. But at first glance, it appears to be effective. However, I'm having trouble fleshing it out. Thoughts? So, yes, a lot of things on first glance seem like they work. Pragmatism often works. And a lot of it depends on what you define as work. Like this little appeasement of the irrational means he can get some stuff done. But he'll never get anything great done. He'll never get anything substantial done. These people will never help him achieve anything of significance. Yeah, they'll make little things possible, little stuff. But he will never live up to his potential. Imagine if he surrounded himself with capable, rational people. And I'm assuming he's smart and ambitious. Think about what he could achieve then. And think about what he's achieving now. So the appeasement of the irrationality is going to lead to a suboptimal life, to a life of underachievement. And it means you're constantly dealing with these people, which erodes your own rationality, it erodes your own confidence, it erodes your own sense of life, it erodes the fun of living. So in so many dimensions, this is destructive. It's destructive because you're not living up to your potential. It's destructive because you have to deal with irrational people. And it's exerting, you have to think about all the energy you're spending on that instead of building, instead of creating, instead of making stuff. And then finally, some of them might backstab him in the future, steal one of his ideas, do something nasty because that's the nature of irrationality. So I get it that he might be, that he might have to do this right now. But if this is the strategy, if they're really irrational, if they really, this is their modus operandi, this is the way they're going to work, and this is the future, then he is destroying his own future by dealing with it. Now, it could be that he's just using it as a tactic to get them to open up, but if they're truly irrational, if that's really what they are, then you just shouldn't deal with them because ultimately you're wasting energy and you're not achieving and you've only got one life, I keep saying, right? Gotta make the most of it. Michael, how hard is it to have drones or security monitoring roofs during events? These assassins have way too easy of a time pulling these things off. Yeah, I mean, I don't understand it. Certainly the Secret Service in the Trump case, man, was that a blunder. I mean, some people lost their jobs over it, but it really is irresponsible. And yeah, there should be drones in the air, particularly for the president or a leading candidate for the presidency. There should be drones. Now, somebody said that Charlie wasn't even wearing a bulletproof vest. And so the whole ricochet story is not true. I don't know. I have no first-hand information. But yeah, I mean, it's not clear why they're not more competent at these things and using drone technology, for example. Non-savage algorithm. Is the lack of gun control laws why Charlie Kirk is dead? No, I don't think so. I mean, look, the rifle that was used is a hunting rifle. I don't think any gun control laws are such that would exclude hunting rifles. His parents used to take him hunting. So hunting was a family thing that they did. I think almost all gun control laws allow for hunting rifles. There are lots of countries where you're allowed to have hunting rifles. No, I mean, look, Charlie Kirk is dead because of the kind of culture we have that accepts violence and the attitude some people, primarily on the left, have towards speech is violence. And therefore what was done to Charlie was an act of justice, supposedly. It's ideas, and it's his psychology, the murderer's psychology, the fact that he was a sick kid. Not sick in terms of mental illness, sick in terms of completely corrupt mind, corrupted by bad ideas. Whether he did it for attention, notoriety, or for the cause, or for whatever, it's sick, and then we have a culture where that works, where that gets you what you want. Not your average algorithm. Would forcing all homeless, mentally ill people into psychiatric facilities and passing stricter gun control measures have prevented the deaths of both Ukrainian girl on the bus and Charlie Kirk? I don't think it would have prevented Charlie Kirk's death. It would have probably prevented the girl's death. And I don't think you can force all homeless, mentally ill people into psychiatric facilities. You can't do that. They have to be, you have to show that they constitute a threat, which includes a lot of mentally ill people. So a lot of mentally ill people should be in institutions. And I think the guy who killed the Ukrainian girl easily could have been determined to be a threat and should have been institutionalized if the law permitted that. The law right now does not permit that, and that's true of blue states and red states. So this is not a Republican-Democratic issue. Republicans want to make it such, but it's not. John, Trump pardoned January 6 rioters who wanted to murder politicians and cops. Is it fair to accuse Republicans of pretending to care about speech in the wake of Charlie's passing, when in reality they're as bad, if not worse, than the left? Yeah, I agree with you completely. And January 6 is the best example. He's freed murderers. He's freed people who beat up policemen. One person who is shown on the video to yell, "Kill the police," is now got a position in the Trump administration. So absolutely, it's fair to accuse Republicans of pretending. This is the difference. They think their speech is just because the left is such a despicable enemy. The left is so low. They're communists, after all, that it's okay to talk violence against them, but not okay to talk violence against good family people, religious people who, represent this country or whatever. That mythology. That's ultimately their argument. If you attack conservatives, we're going to go after you. If you attack leftists, that's okay because they deserve it. That means they don't care about free speech, not as an absolute. Thank you, John. All right, Michael. The point of the left labeling speech as violence was always to justify violence against speech. I mean, maybe, but they also have these massive rationalizations, theoretical, philosophical rationalizations on why speech is violence. Because what they want is not necessarily to shoot people. What they want is to silence people, to intimidate people. And they want to guilt people into self-censoring. And they have whole philosophical theories about why that is right. And it's interesting, the people who come up with these theories are not the people who then commit the violence. They're the people who just stand in the background applauding it and encouraging it and teaching it and kind of brainwashing the kids to do it. Not literally brainwashing, but. Michael, if your actions don't produce a victim, it's not a crime. Yeah, I think that's right. It shouldn't be a crime. Shouldn't be a crime. It is a crime today. Lots of victimless crimes exist today. But crimes, criminal action requires a victim. Equal to reality. It is worth debating Marxist communist street preachers, or is it a complete waste of time, especially if I don't have a crowd? Yeah, if you don't have a crowd, it's a complete waste of time. 100%. The only reason to do it is to draw a crowd and to have the crowd listen to your arguments. Here's a tip for people who attend debates with an objective speaker. You get up there in the Q&A, and so many of you ask the lefty or the conservative or whoever, the non-objectivist, you ask them questions, gotcha questions, as if they're going to go, oh shit, if I knew that, I wouldn't be a socialist. Instead of asking the objectivist the questions, asking him questions so that he can spend more time articulating the positive objectivist position. The Q&A is a great opportunity for you to help the objectivist on stage get into, because in a debate you don't have a lot of time to speak. So what you want to do in the Q&A is maximize your guy's speaking time by asking him questions that give him an opportunity to articulate more of the objectivist position. Instead of gotcha questions, the other side, which most of them are pretty good at deflecting. I'm not sure you've done much. The real point is to get the positive out there. And to get the positive out there, give the good guy on stage the opportunity to articulate it. Just a thing on debating. Hopper Campbell, two-part question. Part one, the assassination of Charlie Kirk was a grotesque violation of the way a free society conducts itself. No matter how bad his ideas were, we benefit from their public articulation. Part two, for the simple reason that bad ideas only reinforce good ideas as long as anyone is willing to think. And if no one is, then no amount of butchery will save us. Yeah, I agree completely. Absolutely. It's a grotesque violation. Bad ideas should be outed. They should be argued against. And if you can't convince the people that bad ideas are bad ideas, then we're lost anyway. Jonathan says free market means free from government, free from coercion, free from force, and certainly free from the arbitrary whim of a president or the arbitrary whim of a secretary of fill in the blank. Yes, free. If only people understood that, understood what it meant. Liam, Kirk was the cause of his own death in the sense that the mysticism he preached demands a violent response to the persuasion he practiced. I would never say that he caused his own death, even by that argument. The fact that he was a mystic is not a causal link to somebody else's own mysticism that led him to do it. So I wouldn't phrase it that way. James Taylor says, use logic to establish context and thereby achieve objectivity. Yes, you should always establish context and you should always use logic. That is what it means to be objective. James, it's not red versus blue anymore, it's humanity versus insanity. Yeah, if only people understood that. It's individualism versus collectivism, reason versus irrationality. On every dimension, it's egoism versus altruism. But this goes to epistemology, reason versus irrationality, and really the primary of existence versus the primacy of consciousness, really at the end of it. So it's all there. It's certainly not red versus blue. Michael says, Candace Owen has uncovered, through careful research, that the Jews are actually behind Charlie Kirk's death. I know it's shocking. I know. But yeah. No, the research is thorough. It's definitive. There's no question about it. Indeed, through meticulous research, Candace has found that every problem in the world, every single one, is actually because of the Jews. And she understands the causal relationship between those. But par for the course, she's not the only one. It's all over the internet. The Jews did it. James, after every assassination, Super Chat gets very restrictive of words we can use. Is this a bad business strategy? YouTube is treating its users like children. Yes, it is. But there were a lot of there's been over the years a lot of clamoring for social media to treat their users as children, and our political class demands that, and our intellectuals demand that. Personal responsibility over your own mind is the one thing people fear and don't want the most. Michael, anti-Semitism is currently reaching levels not seen since Adolf started writing a book about a struggle he was having. Yes, it's really, really bad right now. It's really, really bad. It's on the left, huge on the left. It's big on the right, and it's not a good sign for the culture as a whole. Enric, thank you. I appreciate the support. Lone Dissenter. How to keep the pronunciation straight? Alex Epstein rhymes with ein. Jeffrey Epstein rhymes with obscene. Yeah, I mean, if I could remember that, then I'd get it right every time. Tessa says, I'm jealous too. You don't have to be jealous. Just come to Florence. Spend a little time here. James G. How do white nationalists use events like Charlotte to their advantage? Is there a way, especially in the South, to treat people as individuals, not race? Well, how do they use events like Charlotte? They use it by showing the camaraderie and the energy and the passion that they all had, by showing a US president who kind of winked at them and gave them permission. I know that's very controversial, but he did. It's by making a whole issue of the monuments, which is why they were in Charlotte, right? So taking down of a statue of Robert E. Lee. And again, the Republican establishment now completely agrees with them about the monuments, and indeed some of the monuments are being re-established on the command of the Secretary of Defense. So I think that's how they took advantage of it. I think they couldn't have without the Trump and Trump acolytes and Trump people around Trump basically viewing them as part of their tent and viewing them not positively, not, yeah, these are our people, but yeah, I mean, it's like what he said right now. There's no hatred, there's no violent speech on the right. It's only in the left. There's no right-wing political violence. January 6th doesn't exist. The killing of the Minnesota senators doesn't exist. The killings over and over and over again over the years, mass killings motivated by right-wing ideology don't exist. Only the left is violent, the right is not. Why? If you really dig deep, because the right is just. The right's cause is the right cause. And that message, generally, is a message the white nationalists really latch onto and really embrace. Think of the fact that our Secretary of Defense today is a Christian nationalist. She's not quite a white nationalist, but close. James says, since you are a foodie, have you ever eaten Highland cow beef at yak meat? I have been hearing both are delicious and better for your heart. No, I haven't. But look, any wild raised meat animal is going to be healthier for your heart. They'll have less fat, they'll be leaner, and they'll probably have more omega-3s or better balance between omega-6 and omega-3s. And as a consequence, this is why, range-free chickens or grass-fed beef is considered better than beef that's raised with feed that often changes the balance of nutrients in the meats and in the fat that you consume. But no, I've never had them. I'm curious. Although, I like fat. Fat gives the meat flavor, and a lot of this lean meat is not that interesting. Like caribou or deer or stuff like that. Often it doesn't taste that good because it's just too lean. It doesn't have any flavor. The fat is what gives it flavor. James says, you spent time outside the USA, so does it make you think of living somewhere else part of the year or moving altogether? Any country contenders? I mean, right now I live part of the year outside the United States. Last year I spent 8 weeks out of the US straight, 6 of them in Barcelona, 2 in Israel. This year I'm spending 8 weeks out of the US. I think we did basically 3 weeks in Portugal and 5 weeks in Italy. So my plan is every year, as long as I can, physically and monetarily, as long as I can, to spend like 8 weeks, maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit less, in somewhere in Europe every year. And now, I don't have any contenders for moving full time. There's no way, there's no place that appeals to me full time. I am an American. I want to fight for America. I want to be in America. There are many reasons why I love America. If I had to leave, I don't know where I would go. I couldn't stomach living in a place like Spain, even though I don't mind spending a few weeks there. They're way too leftist. They're way too, leftist in a variety of different ways. Generally, Europe is too far to the left for me to like living here and tolerate it day to day. There are other things that are really good about it, culture and music and things like that. Argentina under Milei, if he's successful and if he wins, I can't really see myself spending long periods of time in Asia. New Zealand has its appeal. I don't know if I could go spend maybe move there, but I think I'm gonna live and die in the U.S. I think this is where I'm gonna be. Again, things could change pretty quickly if things in Washington, D.C. change pretty quickly. Or if, free speech is gone, then I can't do my job in the U.S. So we'll see. But for now, I'm going to spend most of the year, every year in the U.S. All right, guys. Thank you. Thanks to all the super chatters. Really, really appreciate it. Thank you to everybody listening. Don't forget to like the show before you leave. Click that like button. Doesn't cost you anything. I'll click it for you. Don't forget to share if you want to share. Don't forget to, keep engagement going. Now, I expect to have shows tomorrow, Thursday, Friday. No show on Saturday. I don't know about Sunday. And I don't know about Monday. We'll see. And then Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday next week, no shows. There's a possibility that I will not be able to do shows the rest of this week. Family emergency possibilities. So if I'm not on air, I'm not on air. I'll try to do a show as soon as I can. But if there's no show tomorrow, then something is going on. Nothing bad for me. Nothing, nothing about me. But a family emergency is going on, and I can't do a show. So, but hopefully that doesn't happen, and I'll be on tomorrow. But there's a chance, so I'm just giving you a heads up. But let's assume that I will see you all tomorrow. I think it's tomorrow's late. Tomorrow's going to be late. Tomorrow's more like 4 p.m. East Coast time. 4 p.m. East Coast time. See you tomorrow. Bye, everybody.